For almost 2 years, I have held the strong opinion that Beyond the Wall would go down as the worst, stupidest, most painful episode of Game of Thrones. Nothing in that episode makes any sense, it's insultingly pandering, and it hurts to think of what could have been instead. It's a masterpiece in awful. How could it possibly be outdone? How could anything ever compare to the absolute train wreck of Beyond the Wall? The Long Night opens on what us film nerds like to call a pointless long take. Sapochnik has directed most of the giant-ass battle episodes since Season 5, but unfortunately even he can't save this script. But let's see if I can save the lighting. Ah, that's better.
I'm so excited to see the Dothraki in combat again. This is going to be totally epic.
Just saying, if Tyrion's moron brain is too sacred to risk losing in the battle, then why is Sam out here with his cancer-curing encyclopedia mind? He told Jorah literally hours ago that he couldn't even hold a Valyrian steel sword upright. Hey, it's Ghost! Oh man, I'm excited to see him doing stuff this episode. You know, going around, doing anything, like appearing in the battle, that kind of stuff. We get 5 minutes of people looking at each other waiting for something to happen, and then something happens. Melisandre arrives from the north somehow and buffs the Dothraki with fire damage. I'll be honest, this episode is so fucking dumb, but there were like 10 moments that made me think, that's in the top 3 coolest things I've ever seen, and this is the first of them. Jorah draws Heartsbane, reminding us that he has a Valyrian steel sword, which is good setup for his fight against a walker later in this episode. Mel shoots Wormo, a value Magoolies on her way through, and Wormo fires back with a value Dahines. So really Mel says that Grey Worm must die, but he deals with this by saying that he'll do it while serving a just cause and a queen that he chose to believe in. This is good setup for Wormo's sacrificial death later this episode. Dave confronts Mel and she tells us that she'll be dead later this episode, which is good setup for her death later this episode. Dave is too stoned to reply, so he just stares at her. Just after Mel says she's gonna die soon, she gives Arya the old "this person is going to kill me" stare, which is good setup for Arya killing Melisandre later this episode. Okay, so this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, but let's take this moment to discuss the battle plan and how implausible it is that this group of people with so much experience behind them managed to concoct such an insane plan. Ignoring for a moment that for some reason the bulk of the forces are stationed outside the castle and for some reason the dragons hadn't been blasting the dead fuckers for days, we have the Dothraki cavalry charging against an army that is definitely not going to break. Do you know what cavalry is for? 'Cause it's not this. And then we have the siege weapons in front of the infantry. It's like they're not even trying. Oh, hey, look, it's Ghost again, he's running! So the Dothraki charge fails, because of course it does, but don't worry, because Jorah comes back. But yeah, there goes the Khalasar. Almost like that was the worst idea ever. I get that this is a TV show and it's supposed to be a spectacle, but I also get that spectacles can make sense. Wormo chooses now to put on his helmet instead of ages ago like all of the battle droids behind him. Then the fighting starts and we get some good old Gwendolyn Christie sound bites. Jaime learns what it's like to have the Dragonfire on your side, and this shot with Tormund is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Boy, I hope not all the Dragonback shots look this shit. Why are you still here? Jon and Dany think they're gonna get a good go at these blue dudes, but they get hit by a surprise weather event.
Why are you still here?
Sticking with the pointy end.
Hey guys, did you see Season 1? It's available now on Blu-ray. At least it's good setup for Sansa using the dagger on a white later this episode.
She's the smartest person I've ever met.
I don't know how to use it.
The smartest person.
I don't know how to use it.
It's a fucking dagger, you pillock. A white jumps onto Jaime's back when he isn't paying attention, which is good setup for Arya's similarly genius move later on. Sam's about to get shafted when Ed countershafts the shafter, but then he becomes the shaftee when a shifty shafter shafts him. Rip! Sam casually walks away. Down in the Winterfell crypts, it's kinda like Blackwater. Tyrion drinks and doesn't know shit. Tormund tells everyone to... because every named character can issue battle commands, including small children. Wormo gives Dave the signal to give Dany the signal to give Drogon the signal to light the trench. This is good setup for Drogon not lighting the trench right now. Arya can't do it either because I keep telling her she doesn't have proficiency in longbows.
Helmet time over.
Well, it was a good 11-minute run. Wormo leads the detachment that defends Mel while she provides us material for all the jokes about the lighting. And yes, it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Sandor no like, so Sandor leave.
Down in the Winterfell crypts, did you notice that it's kinda like Blackwater? There's talk about Sansa and Tyrion's marriage, and like, That was never annulled, right? We didn't see it at least, or hear about it, or smell it, or... Bop it! Sansa says they would never work, but that it was cool of Tyrion to not rape her. This is good setup for Sansa raping Tyrion later this episode. They don't like you because you're a fucking idiot, Missandei, and let me explain why. You said...
Without the Dragon Queen, there'd be no problem at all. We'd all be dead already.
Which seems to imply that Dany has at some point before now impeded the Night King's progress. Wrong. Would the dead have even made it past the wall if it weren't precisely because of a thing Dany did that Tyrion told her not to do? Like, we can't know if the Night King needed the dragon, but he initiated the next phase of his plan immediately after acquiring one, so it really fucking seems that way. So no, Missandei, without the Dragon Queen, we'd be pointing and laughing at the blue dudes from the other side of the wall that would still be standing. Theon tells Bran that the trench has been lit because... Bran wouldn't already know that. The cripple gets bored and becomes some birds and finds a dragon that we can't see. This first shot of the whites casually walking into the fire is absolutely hilarious to me. It's like, you know those videos of penguins falling over and shit? That's what I see here. Destroyed the tone for me, but you know what? It was worth it. Hey, yo, remember this scene in Season 3 where J.R. burns a white? Here it is 40 seconds after he first lights it. Hey, it's still on fire! And a full minute after getting totally lit, fam, it's still blazing in this freezing blizzard. Just thought now would be a good time to mention that. Have you seen Game of Thrones? Then the command comes through to man the walls because, get this, they weren't already manned. Jon has a staring contest with Rhaegar, which is a good setup for their badass sword fight later this episode. The whites do that pile trick they do and scale the walls, and this is the worst possible way to defend against that. You don't have any burning oil? That'd fucking right up. Only one person needs to miss one white for this defense to fail, which is exactly what happens. Was this actually their strategy?
Sandor no like.
Arya's got Gendry's two-handed pole, and turns out it's detachable. This extremely important weapon that was the centerpiece of 2 scenes this season is disposed of with nary a second thought. So glad Gender's made this instead of finishing up the plot armor for Jorah, Theon, Ed, Beric, and my sanity. Burke tries to get Toto back into the fight, but the dude's stuck in Vietnam. This giant storms in and does what we've all been thinking. Toto calls Berwick a stupid whore, which is good setup for their sex scene later this episode. Dark's response to "I can't beat death" is somehow not "I fucking did," which is dumb, but at least it gets Doggo back into the fight. Lyanna Mormont commits suicide. Sorry, murder-suicide. This shot of the dragons is drop-dead gorgeous. Too bad about the rest. Viserion finally gets reunited with his brothers, and I can definitely see what's going on. Yes, siree. Excuse me, Mr. Camera Operator? Hi. Yeah, big fan of your work. Just wondering, you know, there's a setting on that thing called exposure. If you wouldn't mind just, no, that's the blue filter. How about, no, fuck, that's the interdimensional vortex setting. Much as I despise anything and everything Arya does at this point, the silent tension in this scene is a great contrast to the chaos we've had up until now. It's almost a good scene until they find her for no reason. I don't even need to talk about this shot, it speaks for itself. Waste of a sword though, but I guess it was its purpose. The Hound kidnaps Arya again, and Burke goes down doing his best Jesus impression. Ah yes, this chair and bench ought to hold back that army of zombies quite right. Fuck. Beric's about to give us his last words, but chickens out and calls it quits. Rip. Mel's there because of course she is, and she tells Arya to go kill Tormund because he has blue eyes. And holy shit, I'm pretty sure nobody picked this. Melisandre is Syrio Forel. It all makes sense now. Think about it. Well, don't think too hard. Arya casually walks away. It's dragon time! Don't get distracted. What, you've never seen a dragon fight happening directly overhead? I get that we're supposed to feel the chaos of the battle here, but there's a big difference between that and having no clue what's going on. Bastard Bowl, for all its faults, did this really well. You really feel the death stacking up around you, but you still know what the fuck's happening more or less all the time. This, by contrast, is a confusing mess. Jon attempts his first crash landing without a co-pilot, and yeah, big surprise. Rhaegar gets burnt, but he ain't turned, more like burnt. We already saw him do this trick in season 6, so whatever. Jono wants to take a swing at him, but Rhaegar pulls another trick out of his hat that we haven't seen since season 5. Pulling out all the bangers tonight. He's right there, Jon! Why did you stop? Oh, we've cut away. Everyone who was having a nap wakes up. There's no reason not to assume that Beric doesn't also wake up and the Hound just whacks his head off.
Whoever dies lost. Be a good lad and burn the rest of us. Once I'm done with this world, I don't want to come back.
Alright, let's do a head count. I scout 11 White Walkers here. Sam got one in Season 3, Jon got one in Season 5, and another in Beyond the Wall, and Mira got one in Season 6. So add the Night King and that's 16. Why are there 16 walkers? Are there more that aren't here? Is it like Kingsman, where there's always a certain number and if one dies they get replaced? Boy, I can't wait to find out more about how the White Walkers work. The thing we all knew would happen in the Crypts happens and nothing comes of it. Not even little Sam or Shireen's ghost gets killed. I feel jibbed. Hang on, how in the ever-loving, poorly lit, teeth-brushing fuck are these decrepit skeletons breaking through these statues? Did the Starks build their crypts out of chipboard? Hey, does anyone else remember this small crate light enough for Fido to carry that contained a much fresher white for weeks? Dany and Drogon come to save Jon, but not burn him to death because Targaryens are fireproof, obviously, which... Oh, that's why Rhaegar wasn't hurt. Dany, who is on top of a dragon, tells Jon to use his feet to get to Bran. She does this because she secretly wants them all to lose. There is no other explanation. The screenwriters summon Jorah in face-up defense position to save Dany from her own ineptitude with the sword of the house that she ruined. Oh, we've cut away. Jon is faced with the choice of either saving Sam or stopping Rhaegar from getting to B-chair. He chooses the option that saves humanity, even though Sam's cool. Having your hero face a tough decision when the stakes are at their highest is always a good move, so long as the consequences of that decision are pertinent after the fact. This episode really is setting up a lot of exciting moments. If only any of them actually happened. Turns out Jon does fucking nothing of any effect in this battle. No, he didn't burn all those whites, Rhaegal did, and he could have done that without him. Our main character, our pivotal hero, who is the Secret King, does fucking nothing in the battle for humanity's fate except yell at a dragon. I'm mad. Sansa and Tyrion share a series of looks that are supposed to convey something. I assumed it was romantic, but then they stand up and just kind of walk to safety. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen, and so is this later on. Hey Jon, it's a white. Maybe gently caress it with that Valyrian steel sword you have right there. It'll probably kill it instantly, you drongo. The music over this montage of everything going to shit is cool, maybe a bit too Westworld, but I'm all for experimenting with score. But Brian's trademark scream with all that reverb is too funny for me to keep a straight face through this. Sorry, Ramen. Okay, as stupid as this all is, Alfie got me. Rip. Bran telling him that he's a good man actually oofed me. Theon hears all he's ever wanted to hear. He has a home and a family, and he's a good man who is doing the right thing, and he heard it from the person you could say he wronged the most. It's a gorgeous send-off to my favorite character. This show actually got me to feel something, so I was glad it ended this way for Theon. Keyword was. So Rhaegar gets to Bran. Ah yes, here I am, finally, at last, here in front of you, Bran Stark, the ultimate goal of my campaign. Yes, this is where I am. Wonderful. It is now time to kill you. I am reaching for my weapon now, which I will use to kill you momentarily. Here I go, drawing my weapon to kill you with. Almost there. Just a little further. Hey, what's that? Ah! You almost got me, but I noticed. Now it's time to stab you with my weapon. Have you seen Season 7, fucko?
This is a show about ninjas.
Rip Rhaegar. And Cersei is the final boss. This show is dead now. Arya killed the show. This is so fucking stupid. Like, that was the long night? It wasn't even an hour and a half. All that build-up, 8,000 years of spooky legends and apocalyptic prophecy, and all it took was to pull off a whooshy-swishy knife trick. They could have sent Carl fucking Tanner up north to deal with it if it was that easy. And the little psycho doesn't even have the courtesy to die while doing this. The ultimate climax to the entire story happens with Arya shanking a dude she's never met while Jon yells at a dragon and Bran checks his emails. No, the army of the dead was just a side plot, idiots. The real deal is the Pumpkin Queen and the cosplay enthusiast down south, you fucking morons. You just don't like it because it subverted your expectations, man. Just stop analyzing it and enjoy it, dude. Not everything has to be about logic, bro. Just turn your mind off and look at the pretty colors. Who cares if the story has no consistency or integrity? Who cares if the core message is poisoned for the need of fan service? Just stab global warming to death. Just make a video with a red circle in the thumbnail. Jorah dies upon seeing Emilia Clarke's ugly crying face. I am not joking when I say that the giant CGI dragon gives the more convincing performance in this scene. Sandor and Mel come out of their hovel. What do you reckon they were doing in there, hey? Aside from killing Beric. Mel wanders off like an old cat, but then does something I've never seen a cat do. Rip. Of course Viserion collapsing is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Are you fucking kidding? The Long Night is a feature-length omni-shambles. It is embarrassing to think about how many people this script had to go through before it made it to our televisions with the brightness turned all the way up. And none of those people did anything about it. It's like Dave and Dan walked into my house, politely asked dozens of people if it was okay if they shat over all my favorite books, and nobody, not a single one, said a damn thing. So I would like to take a moment to update my rating of the previous episode from kinda dumb but it's got heart to 50 minutes I'm never getting back, because this episode retroactively ruins that one. All that set up with no payoff, so many completed arcs that are now just hanging open, characters with nothing left to accomplish except beat Cersei because she's the bad guy. What's the fucking point anymore?
Kill me.
Every single Valyrian steel sword was in this battle, and not a one was used to kill a walker. I guess it was all pointless. Didn't need them, it turns out. This episode gets one angry boy out of one. Oh yeah, as for death scenes, Theon's was definitely the best until Arya ruined it, at which point Mel's became the best, even though it's like some art house film. Ed's is next, then Beric, then Jorah, then Lyanna, then I guess all of the Dothraki, then there's a giant abyssal maw of a gap, and then the Night King is the worst. I was actually waiting for my death scene, but unfortunately, I'm still alive and have to sit through the rest of this shit. The main takeaway here is how poorly managed my anger is. Wait, what the fuck happened to Ghost?